Welcome back for more League of Legends as G2 Esports and Origen fight for a spot in the final. We're coming off a back and forth game one. And if you want a closer look at the action, you can check out our POV stream over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. This time, we'll see the game through the eyes of Patrik. Ooh. You can also watch G2 Origen and Fnatic in Rotterdam next weekend as they fight for the first LEC title. Get your tickets at eu.lolesports.com/Rotterdam.
Yes, you should do that. But before that, watch this game, because it's going to be great. So, we're in for game 2 between G2 and Origen. I'm very excited to see how the draft will shape up. It looks like that G2 will be remaining on the blue side. Remember that the loser of the previous game gets choice of side selection, which means the Origen chose red. They want the counter pick, they want to have those options, but it also kind of forces you into some bans and things like the Silas. And last game, they also banned away Kale and Akali.
Yes, they did, and I think both these teams, with how close the game was, would be comfortable running it back. But the big pick that speaks out to me is the Rise. Whether or not Origen want to remove that, as opposed to the Akali pick, which they did ban third in game number 1, because Caps basically just won the game for his team with that pick.
A little bit of a turn up here on the G2 ban phase as well, as they removed the Galio instead of Morgana for their final ban. So they were pretty frustrated with how good Mithy was on that Galio, how much it brought to the team fight. Here, Origen taking their time, pontificating, thinking about exactly who they're going to ban, and it will be the Rise taken away.
So I really like this Rise in the gap between the games. Enra and I were talking about how this champion just allows G2 to be more creative than they already are. This team is just very innovative in how they approach the draft, and they were just like, well, you know what? It's extremely strong for us, so they're going to take it off the board.
This is super fast. Rek'Sai picked up, then Lissandra, Jarvan straight away from Origen, matched by a Xayah, Rakan, and already won the last pick of phase 1.
Yeah, so last game, the Kalista Braum was supposed to win lane, but it wasn't too hot. This time around, they go for the Lovers duo. I like this a lot, especially with the buffs that Xayah got on this patch. She became a much stronger champion, and having the Rakan as well gives you a lot of tools to play around this bottom side of the map if you are Jankos.
So right now, Origen, they have a lot of utility already in their composition. They have a lot of peel as well. The Tahm Kench, really good at getting people out of those awkward situations. I've always kind of wondered why many people pick the Tahm Kench into the Rakan because of his AoE charm. There's always the risk of, you know, you and the target getting locked up. But if Tahm Kench kind of stays, he can soak up a lot of the damage with his great health, and then if a target ends up getting locked down, the moment that charm runs out, he can then consume you out of any awkward situation. So I think many sports do quite like that matchup in the laning phase as well.
See Origen focusing out the mid laners in their second phase of the bans. Akali, Corki removed, Ezreal taken away by G2. Expect to see another AD carry in that slot.
Yeah, now looking at what Origen want to pick here for Patrik specifically, I actually wouldn't be opposed to seeing a champion like the Ashe, perhaps. I think that having some extra lockdown on a champion like the Rakan that wants to be diving in towards you can be very powerful. And the big takeaway for me here from Origen is that you can go for your ADC here. It looks like it may be the Varus as opposed to any of these other picks. Not going to get baited by that, but ultimately what they can do is they can flex this Lissandra around and get the absolute best matchup for Nukeduck possible in mid.
Right, certainly can.
It's not that often we see Lissandra flex towards the top lane anymore, though. It's happened.
Saw it yesterday.
Yeah, saw it yesterday, but it's one game in
the
10
world as well. We've seen it a whole lot more than we have here at home in the LEC.
And you already talked about the Varus pick. I do quite like it. Adds further utility to the already strong team fighting that Origen have drafted for themselves. I feel like they're taking a very similar approach, but to be fair, G2 haven't really showcased a lot. They already have good engage with the Rakan. Then they've got a strong 2v2 bot that they can look to play around, and G2 are going to very quickly round out their draft with 2 big comfort picks for themselves.
Yeah, and G2 are going to use Nukeduck's own counter pick against him with the Swain into Lissandra. Now, because these 2 picks are so flexible, G2 are just going to match where this Lissandra goes, I feel, with the Swain. Yep. You want to get it in that matched up lane, and Irelia has a lot of really good matchups where she can go just about even. So G2, even though they're on blue side, have the flexibility to deny them a hard counter.
Ooh, I really like this Poppy hover though, because I think that it does very well into, fun fact, champions that have a lot of dashes and things like Rakan, things like Irelia. I believe it, does it work against Rek'Sai tunnels, do you know?
It does, yes.
Oh yeah, so
it's really mean. Her ultimate will go through because you're unstoppable, but the tunnels, no fun.
So a lot of the mobility tools that G2 have in their draft get mitigated by the Poppy, so I do quite like this pickup. And again, I think that OG have gone very team fight style. They have a very typical front to back. They do have a little bit of dive with the Lissandra and the Jarvan, and I do think that with the amount of mobility on the side of G2, a lot of it can be interrupted from the side of Poppy. So I'm kind of expecting another 1-3-1, maybe a 1-4 coming out from the side of G2, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a very similar game plan to what we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, similar game plan, but the key difference for me is the Rise pick that Origen banned away, because no longer will you have Caps going into a side lane and breaking all of your turrets, going for the back door, blowing up your inhibitors. That will not be how G2 win this game. Instead, it relies a lot more on the skirmishing that we know they were able to do so well early on in the split.
Definitely worked out for them in the first half of the split. Not too much in the second half. They did lose 4 of their last 5 games, but back to winning ways in this matchup versus Origen. Origen perhaps, well, they want to show us the same stuff in the early game, and then they just want to show us a little bit more proactivity. Maybe just a little bit more willingness to pull the trigger, because we never really saw an engage with the Jarvan Galio until way into that game.
Yeah, and we heard it from the analyst desk. I do think the Origen could have been a little bit more proactive with their composition, but it's one of those eternal debates where it's like, if you engage, what happens to the side lane, right? You know, what do you lose in exchange for that? So either way, Origen going to come refreshed, revitalized into Game 2. Let's see how they can handle the pressure from G2 this time around.
G2 1-0 up in this best of 5. 2 games away from securing their spot in the finals in Rotterdam. Origen looking to strike back as we jump onto the Summoner's Rift for the second game of the day. And I know there's a lot of interesting matchups here. I know that bot lane specifically for me is very interesting, but where are you guys looking early on?
Right now I'm looking at the level 1 strat that G2 has come up with, as they've sent both Caps and Wunder to the bot side of the map. Mithy has gone over the wall using his W. Patrik has no information on this. And you can already see the pings coming out from G2. They're looking to set up the flank from behind. They're looking to try and get a pick onto Patrik.
But Patrik can just walk up towards Mithy here. Now spots out G2. Caps will have the claw. Doesn't land it. Mithy uses W to eat him up. But Mikyx comes across the wall there and knocked back Mithy. Lots of damage coming down. There's the ignite as well. They're continuing on the chase. They get first blood. And G2 with a perfect collapse will strike first.
It's a beautiful level 1 setup there from G2, because they have so many tools to work with. Not only was it Mikyx on the flank, but Swain can very easily take the never move at level 1, and you have access to the passive on Swain, which is so strong, using that pullback off of any CC, which let them get not just the first blood, but both summoner spells off of Mithy.
And now they can look to play around the bot side of the map once again. Rakan, very easy to set up these plays. Even after the nerfs to his W, can still be very obnoxious to deal with in the laning phase. And Jankos, the only issue is Rek'Sai level 2 ganks, arguably not the strongest ender.
Also, Jankos went back to base. So he recalled. He has a long sword currently because he got 400 gold off of that first blood. Now his early pathing will be slightly delayed. So the level 3 point that you really look to on the Rek'Sai before you can make that first big play will not come that fast.
Could try and fight Kold around this Scuttle Crab, though, if he wants to. His level 2 is pathing down towards the bottom side of the map. Now we'll realize that Kold is on it. Does have the smite available. Kold doesn't have a smite of his own, so Jankos could just walk up to this, but because Nukeduck can come down from mid just a little bit quicker, he didn't want to risk it.
When is Jankos going to realize that in Rek'Sai versus Jarvan matchup, you can't contest the crab at level 2? Once again, he's going to lose both Scuttle Crabs, even though he got first blood and has a longsword up on the J4.
Whoops, another oopsie there from Jankos. Early pathing going to go in favor of Kold. I wonder if he'll look to invade enemy topside, because he has good information that Jankos will be on the Krugs, but obviously there is the risk of getting collapsed on by Wunder and Caps. But I wonder if he's already afraid of that. You can see he's already moving into the enemy jungle. He doesn't have a vision, or a trinket rather.
There you know, the blue buff is up as he spots it out with his eyes. Don't need a trinket to see that one, and has the flash still available, of course. Looks like Jankos just going to do his Razor Beaks. Maybe not expecting Kold to go for this invade after he was spotted out on a ward, but Kold will actually get what looks to be a 3-buff hit versus the G2 jungler.
Yeah, of course, Jankos won't be too sad about losing the blue buff for the actual stats that it does give him, but the experience going to be nice for Kold to try to shut him down. Now, Kold is currently pathing around towards this top side. Nukeduck is on the way as well. He used the claw to get over the wall, and they want the dive.
Flawless Duet was used there by Wunder as well, so there's no stun possibility. Kold going in for the dive here. Wunder, teleport comes in straight away. There's the Steadfast Peasants already. Wunder down. Now the TP can't be cancelled, of course, but Jankos is on the flank. Vision Vampire comes down. Alphari flashes across the wall. Jankos down to about half HP, but already Kold's done. Jankos underneath the tower, the hammer into the back of Jankos will secure it. There's the TP coming in from Perkz now. He's going to join the fight towards the top side. It's Wunder coming back in instead. Perkz still down towards the bottom side. The claw gets Nukeduck away for the moment, still has the flash.
He has the flash if he wants to look for it. No mana on towards Nukeduck, but they do get out in the end. It started as such a clean turret dive there from Origen, but the early damage of Jankos' Rek'Sai as well as the turret coming through is able to turn it around.
Yeah, I love the play from Origen. As you said, I thought it was very clean. Note how Alphari is the one to kick things off by landing the stun into the turret. This means that the follow-up CC, there's very little that can be done. And you'll see that he also gets interrupted. Oh, we have another gank in mid.
Nukeduck's already used the flash here as well. Caps on the chase. Jankos there with the Prey Seeker. One more auto will be enough, and Caps puts down the claw, secures the kill.
He just TP'd back into lane 2. That is brutal, but look topside. Wunder has the flash if he wants to get out.
Kold holding onto the EQ combo here, waiting for Wunder to flash. He'll flash underneath the tower, and Kold will not dive any further. But Wunder forced away, doesn't have teleport to get back to this lane.
You wanted proactivity, Vedius. I think we got it.
We're going to get another dive?
Jankos looking for another pair. Remember, Mithy still has no flash.
And he used the tunnel. Mithy, no flash. There is an exhaust available as well. Jankos
big wave,
waiting.
though.
He's waiting. As you say, a big wave. Very impactful early on. Jankos coming in, doesn't have the flash. Will land the knockup only onto Mithy. Mikyx with the chase in. Thick skin from Mithy will keep him alive for the moment. The ignite is ticking away. Mikyx tanking up the tower. Perkz gets the kill. And a perfectly executed dive there by G2.
And this is the early game that G2 fans wanted to see from Jankos. He couldn't have that much impact in game 1, but this time around he saw Kold head towards the top side of the map. He saw his top laner lose his flash, and that gives him the information needed to know that he can make this play bot happen. And remember, Mithy had no flash from the level 1 play. It was still on cooldown, and while G2 did have to expend a couple of summoner spells to get it, they find themselves another advantage in the early game.
And it was what we were waiting for G2 to do, right? Because in the last game, they wanted to play around bottom side. It didn't really work out, so the game stalled for a long time until they were eventually able to close it with smart macro play. This time around, Jankos was able to make that first gank in the bottom lane land true and has put his team in a very good position.
Now, the big advantage for Origen right now is the fact that their top laner is 18 CS ahead. He has 2 levels over his lane opponent, and he actually set up a really strong freeze towards his side of the map, which meant that Wunder was zoned away from so much early experience and gold. But we see another play in the mid lane.
Nukeduck is going to claw away here. Mikyx doesn't have the chase possibility. Let's go back up towards that top lane though, Vedius.
But with regards to this matchup right now, you've got to remember that Wunder, during the regular season, he has been one of the most dominant players that we have in our league. Now, while the second half, many argued that Cabo was the best performing top laner, I think that what Wunder demonstrated was that in that G2 Fnatic game, when you put him on a carry, this man likes to carry. And in a game where he's playing as Irelia, it's very important that you are relevant come the mid game, and you can become the split pushing threat. And the fact that he has this deficit will make it much harder for him to do that.
Certainly will. Also, you do need the items on the Irelia before you can out-sustain the Poppy in the side lane. Trinity Force, as well as probably a Tiamat upgrade, going to be very important because Poppy, one of her biggest strengths is she can just shut you down. She goes for very early armor in the matchup. You see her do this all the time against champions like Fiora or the Irelia. Bramblefest right off the bat, because you know Irelia's going to be healing off of her Q as well as the Conqueror, and it's going to make the side laning much more difficult for Wunder for a while.
Although there is an advantage for Origen in the top lane, it's echoed in the bottom lane in the form of Perkz being 15 to 20 CS up on average, 1-0-1 already on the Xayah, building up towards that Essence Reaver.
Going to be very strong down there. Now, Jankos coming bottom lane, walked over 2 wards, by the way, because the champion's blind. He's underground, can't see anything. Kold,
she's blind.
Yes, correct. Kold not looking for the counter gank there. He pinged his bottom lane 2 back away very smartly because the 3v3 probably doesn't look too good for Origen's side on this bottom side. Right now, Perkz especially hitting level 6, and with the 20 CS advantage is going to be a big deal.
Jankos will realize now that he is on a control ward as he starts up the Ocean Drake. Not an Infernal that we saw fought over in the last game. Ocean, very powerful early on, of course, giving you all of that extra mana and health regen, but not something Origen are too worried about fighting over.
I don't think they can afford to fight over it right now anyway. Their bot lane is at a pretty big deficit. Their mid laner, he doesn't have flash right now, and he's almost dying. He has to show respect here to Caps.
Alphari is on his way down. Kold was just around the corner as well, but they decide not to go for it. There is about 1,000 gold lead already for G2, only 8 minutes in. A lot of that will be coming through that bottom lane advantage, and of course, the extra couple of kills.
Lethal tempo on Perkz there, coming in handy as they go for these early trades. If he was able to land that, I think it's
Blade Caller?
Blade Caller. I knew it was something caller, but we have a Root Caller, a feather caller, all kinds of callers.
We don't have a feather caller, but I'll let you get away with it.
All right.
We have a Feather Storm.
Feather Storm, there you go. There's too many. It should just be Q, E, W, and R. That's just the reality of it.
Stick to analyzing.
You're better at it. What I can see right now is that Perkz have priority bots, so they're going to be able to go back. Perkz should be able to complete his first item 9 minutes into the game. And they think they've set up a trap, but unfortunately they are standing on a ward right now.
It's not the sneakiest of traps that I have ever seen.
But they think they're being sneaky.
Exactly, exactly. Origen should just be safe here. Maybe?
I mean, the minions are going to walk towards them. They'll.
Yes.
Oh, no!
But how did they know?
You can see here, though, at the moment, there's a little bit of a fight around that. Age coming in. There's the Vanguard's edge as well. Alphari coming in from the side as well. Patrik teleporting down towards the bottom lane. Wunder caught out on the back. Cataclysm comes out from Kold as well. They're trying to take down Jankos down towards the bottom side of the fight. As Patrik joins the Barney. There's the Demonic Ascension coming out from Caps. He's so healthy already, but the flash away from the nether move from Patrik. Caps pops, but he gets popped. It's a shutdown for Origen.
It's a fantastic TP there from Patrik as well, using the ult onto Jankos. Jankos popped up and couldn't get the knock-up because he was rooted in place. Patrik is the hero for OG in that fight.
He also turned it into a numbers advantage, and in the 3 versus 3, this could have gone horribly wrong for Origen, but they knew that they had the teleport. They know that this play is safe, and while initially Wunder gets to this play first, and you think, this is looking bad, a good flash in from Caps is what kicks off the fight, and then the immediate teleport ward in, and keep your eyes on Varus. This is what Endo was talking about. The ulti onto Rek'Sai means that he can't get that knock-up, he can't threaten anyone in the fight, and Jankos drops, resulting in a 2 versus 4 that OG end up coming out on top of.
And at level 6 with the Halo Blades, Rek'Sai would just blow Patrik up if that ult did not connect. Now mid lane, we did see Mikyx using the ultimate and his flash to find the engage. That did not land here for G2, so this is making me feel very much like the G2 that went 9-0 at the start of the split with just how fast and forward they're trying to play this game.
So 10 minutes in, about 500 gold between the two teams. G2 in the advantage. CS lead for Alphari in the top lane, but it's matched by Perkz' lead down towards that bottom side.
And he's going to lose even more on the side of Patrik, rather, because of the plates that also went down in favor of Perkz. Note how he is level 8 to the level 6 of Patrik. Also note how just a second ago, Kold was level 6 to the level 7 of Jankos, whereas Alphari is level 9 to the level 8 of Wunder. So like, you can clearly see where Origen and G2 have their respective advantages, and now they need to try and play around these leads. And that's why you're seeing Origen try and make a lot of these plays towards the top side of the map, whereas G2, they're trying to snowball Perkz and Mikyx even more.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things we looked at when we saw the first half or second half of the split for G2 was where Jankos was investing his resources. Because when G2 were dominating the league, he actually spent a lot of time around the bottom side of the map, which is maybe a little surprising because Wunder is one of G2's top performers on this roster. This game, he's playing towards the weak side a little bit, and this could be bad.
Alphari gets a knock into the wall. Mikyx dunked. That is a very roast chicken. The Chain of Corruption still going to land on towards Jankos. He'll flash away, but that's his Summoner spell burned. And Origen continuing to play around this blue buff.
And playing around the top side of the map. This time, though, they brought the entire family. They used the Tahm Kench ultimate to dive onto the backside, and they were able to lock down Mikyx, who is just trying to clear a control ward. Origen have now equalized the kill score and demonstrated that they can match G2 in the early game, just like they did in game 1, and that they can hold their own against the first seed at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, and they're on a great timing here to pick up this Rift Herald with pressure in the top lane, mid lane as well. They can decide where they want to put that down to try and crack a tower to get the plate money. Get some more control here. Jankos has something to say about it, though.
And Nukeduck has the flank position here. Jankos no flash. Will pop the Void Rush onto Nukeduck. The charm comes out as well, roots them up in the place. Caps is on the other side of the wall and can't join the fight. But maybe he's going in as the Vanguard's edge comes out. The Keeper's verdict. A great stun. Nukeduck is down from Perkz. Mithy chased off towards the top side. Wunder gets another kill. And G2 were able to find the perfect fight in their own jungle. Now Patrik has to get away. Mithy chasing onto Mikyx. Licks him out. Spits out Perkz as well. Isn't going to quite have enough damage. And Perkz will take down his former support.
Ooh, big team fight in favor of G2 this time around, but you have to give props to Wunder in that fight. He landed such a crucial stun onto multiple members to help swing the fight in the favor of Alphari. So observers, please, when we get into the replay, give us that slow-mo, give us that zoom in on Wunder, because if he didn't interrupt that Alphari ultimate, that could have been a one-team fight for Origen.
It definitely could have. His engage at the start as well, flashing over the wall to throw down the ultimate CC them inside of that corridor was absolutely great to watch.
And he's really mitigated that disadvantage up towards the top lane as well. They're within 5 or 6 CS, while bot side, there's a 40 CS lead for Perkz. He's 3-0-1 on this Xayah now, in such a strong position when these team fights do kick off.
Big damage down onto Perkz right there, and it's funny because after that game one, we were thinking, is this going to be just a huge series with super long games, or are these teams going to make changes coming into the match? And I was thinking to myself, you know, usually after you have just a smackdown of a game where it goes 50 minutes, the next game gets a lot faster because neither team wants to be in that stressful situation ever again. You can see Jankos walks in here initially, and it does look bad, but a key thing to note is he uses his own ultimate to actually mitigate the CC from Lissandra ult. Lissandra ult goes to animation, he becomes unstoppable and tracks it through. So he delays the engage, and then you see the TP to the tunnel on the other side. Ult flash to get the immediate CC, then three-man stun onto the front line here, including Patrik. It's huge.
Wunder caught out here, gobbled up by Mithy. Now Alphari should be able to get the final auto attack down. He will go out, and Origen find another kill. 4 plates to 1 in favor of G2. You can see actually Origen weren't even able to pick up the gold from the plate they did acquire.
So a bit of an overextension in the bot side from Wunder. He wasn't expecting Mithy's ultimate to show up, turning it into a 2 versus 1. But G2 right now hold on to the gold lead, 25.4 to 24.5. Still a very close game once again. And I kind of wanted to think at Ender about, like, what are the next steps from here? What are we kind of looking at in terms of where the teams are looking to play? Because something we talked about for G2 is it is once again very much the 1-3-1 style. They have the Swain and they have the Irelia, so they're able to play on these side lanes. And how about on this 1 versus 1? And for Origen, again, they have a little bit more of the teamfight-esque. So how will they try and set these things up, and how will they look to try and get back at G2?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things coming into the 15-minute mark now with objectives on both sides, turrets, you have the Ocean Drake as well as the Rift Herald, is who is actually in the mid lane. And right now, because G2 have such a big advantage between Perkz and Mikyx, he's actually just 1v2 right here, walking up and pushing the wave. So G2, for the foreseeable future, are going to have permanent mid lane priority, which makes it much easier to either make plays on the sides or look for either of these objectives, because it will be OG with Patrik and Mithy showing up a little late to those engagements.
And one of the things I think that G2 could look to play for is this Rift Herald. We can already see that it started off, but one of the things that they'd set up beforehand was this vision control throughout the river, and it ties back into what you were talking about, and they had priority mid, they had priority top, and they just cleared out all these wards so that this area of the map is completely invisible to Origen. Thank you, observers, for helping us illustrate that. As you can see that now this should be a free Rift Herald, and now this means that breaking that mid tier 1 becomes a lot easier for the side of G2.
See Kold trying to answer with an Ocean Drake for themselves. Will match up against G2's Ocean Drake they've already taken, but as you say, the Rift Herald can open up those towers pretty well. In terms of itemization, we are sitting on a Rod of Ages already stacking up 4 caps. He's at 3 stacks. Protobelt was just finished in the mid lane as well. Perkz has to pop the ultimate to get away. Mikyx eats up an arrow to the back, but they will be able to escape. Mikyx still has the flank position here with a flash and quickness if he wants to go in, but it would be a outnumbered fight if they did engage.
Yeah, in the meantime, G2 have Jankos positioned around top lane. He just actually reset, knowing that the rest of Origen's around the mid, because they get that top lane tower for free because they were able to absorb the engage from OG.
So have a look at the minimap right now. You'll notice that this is exactly what Origen did last time. They send multiple members towards an area of the map so they can guarantee either control or an objective. But this leaves room for caps to just solo up in the top side of the map. Now the difference is very much this Rise pick that isn't available for G2, but also the lack of teleport on caps right now. He's running the Unsealed Spellbook. He's swapped over for Cleanse for the time being. And now he's actually grabbed himself an Exhaust as well, while his Flash and TP are on cooldown, which means the Origen don't actually get punished for this, and they can even use Tahm Kench's ultimate to then move back up to the top side of the map, catch the wave, and now they can start grouping up mid and sieging onto this tower.
Yeah, I think OG are ideally looking to find someone out of place on G2's side, because they have a lot of individual pick potential with this team composition. You also have the Tahm Kench ultimate as well to try and collapse on a side lane and find a kill onto a member like Wunder, which we've already seen them do. That's what OG are trying to do by running around with multiple members, whereas G2, because they picked up the Rift Herald, now have a lot of people focused around this mid lane to try and break that.
I actually really like this Rift Herald timing, because Alphari was heading down towards bot to stop Wunder, but Wunder's going to get a free tower here because he had to come back and answer the Rift Herald push. They won't get mid, but they will get bot tower out of this.
So again, good map play from the side of G2. By effectively creating a distraction in the mid lane, it then opened up Wunder to take this tower.
Ooh, shiny thing over here.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess it's better to say a point of pressure, right? You know, like they're attacking this point, and then you leave a point of weakness elsewhere, which they then use one of their side laners to attack. And again, like we've said a lot so far in these first 2 games, but I really want to reinforce that. That is what G2 is very good at. They're very creative in how they create like a focal point. They say, this is what you need to focus on. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. The moment you look, before you know it, something behind you has happened, and you're suddenly at a deficit. And that's what makes them so scary to play against, because on paper, Origen is doing a lot of the right steps. They're taking their time, they're playing around their win conditions, but whenever they set up to do what their team needs, something creative, something unexpected is happening that gets in their way.
Exactly. Often for G2, it's about just increasing the tempo of the game, whether that's just like throwing so many fights at you that you're bound to make a mistake eventually, because the thought process for them is, well, Origen are this slow, calculated team where they need to see what's going on the map, then make a decision around that, and then act on that decision. G2 are just acting. So Origen are still trying to assess what's going on.
It's like they're making it up on the fly, do you know what I mean?
No, legitimately. And what it means is that Origen are still stuck in this planning phase where they don't get to take all the information, and instead they just must respond immediately. And that's where teams tend to make mistakes, and that's how they really exploited a lot of the teams in the LEC early on.
Our mid lane tower will fall for G2 as we come up towards the 20-minute mark. Once again, they have a 1,500 gold lead. Feels very reminiscent of Game 1. They seem to just be pulling Origen around the map. But Origen have the superior team fighting team, so maybe just waiting for another item, another half an item on some of their carries before they can group up.
Let's also not forget where those advantages came from. And this is a great time to bring up this graphic. You can see that Perkz and Caps built up very strong leads during the laning phase. And Nukeduck, he stayed relatively even with Caps, but Caps has built up a little bit more of a lead because he's been going off into the side lane. But who really had the gold advantage was Alphari up in the top side. The problem is that Wunder has started to close that gap, whereas Patrik has not. And you can see how there is still a 2,000 deficit between those two carries, whereas Wunder is getting more and more gold and is starting to catch up to Alphari and should be more relevant as we approach the mid game.
And we praised G2 in Game 1 for their lane assignments, how they were playing a 1-3-1 or a 1-4. It seems to be working out incredibly well for them again this game. They just seem to find more CS, more gold on the map than other teams. And now we'll see Jankos coming up towards the top lane as Caps was just playing defensive here. Nukeduck backed away. And for the moment, no action will occur.
So the struggle that OG has right now is they really want to break this mid-tier 1, but because of how strong Perkz is, G2 is always getting pressure, so they need to force a fight, which is what Kold tried to do there, but unfortunately they couldn't get that commitment. Remember, Perkz still has his ultimate available, and if they don't find that initial pick, if they don't get that land onto the carry, then it could go very wrong for Origen.
Yeah, both teams are trying to make something happen around the mid lane, but neither are able to find their mark. So let's talk team fights, and specifically I want to focus in on Kold, because this is not the same style of Jarvan that we saw in Game 1. That was about the Conqueror with the full tank approach to be a frontline for the team. Instead, it's Electrocute with the Warrior enchant first. Now, he is 0-3, so he's not going to have as big of an impact in these fights as you perhaps would have liked to, but it gives you this idea that Origen are maybe looking for faster team fights where they explode into your backline with the Lissandra burst and the Jarvan layered on top of each other. Then you have the consistent DPS of Patrik to back it up, but ultimately they're looking for the big burst right at the start, whereas G2, you see picks like the Swain and the Irelia that really value more extended fights where they can make full use of the sustain in their kits.
Oh, we'll keep our eyes on that as the game does progress. For now, it looks like G2 are just going to go for the Cloud Drake as Jankos sets up down towards that. And while we have a brief moment, a brief pause in the action, I do want to just remind people about how storied both of these teams are in the history of Europe. G2, 4 LEC titles, started winning as soon as they joined the league, have been in 5 finals, they've been in 7 consecutive playoffs, and have gone to Worlds 3 times, making the semi-finals last year, of course. Origen, on the other hand, although they are a massive brand, although they are known throughout all of Europe, have only ever made it to 2 playoffs. Yes, they made finals both times, but last time they lost 1-3 to G2. And although they have made World semi-finals, it was a long time ago.
It certainly was. It's quite interesting because of how popular Origen as a brand is. And when you think about it, like, their actual success has been very limited, but they had such an impressive year.
Genocoption was used. Perkz still has the ultimate here, just holding on to it.
But because they had such an impressive year, just like so many fans got behind them, and it helped that they had a lot of members from Fnatic, the original, you know. But now they're looking to change things around as they make a play down towards the bot side.
There's no chain of corruption on Patrik, so they can't lock Wunder in place. He did have to use the flash to get away. G2 trying to get mid prio because they know that the Tahm Kench is down towards the bottom lane. But it looks like Origen actually might keep 3 players down there and go for the push on this inhib tower.
Yeah, so this game, it's Origen with the global pressure, but the key difference is that they have to commit 2 or 3 members to a lane, which means that you can't actually respond with a 4v5 on the other side. There's also not a teleport on a player like a Tahm Kench to react after making that move towards bottom. Mithy will have to eat up Patrik and get him on out of there. So we'll see that Origen can try to make these plays in the side lanes, but they can't commit like Caps was last game on the Rise. It has to be in and out.
24 minutes in, there's about 1,000 gold between the two teams. We are seeing 2 items now complete as well. Patrik has finished the Ginsus on the Varus, so it is that on-hit Varus that we usually see. Lethality Varus, a long time in the past, of course. 2 items on Perkz as well with the Essence Reaver, building up towards that Infinity Edge next, you have to think, on the Xayah. We'll have a lot of damage if he can get those feathers off in these team fights.
I mean, what still impresses me is that Perkz is currently level 14 as an AD carry. Not very common. Usually they are a little bit behind in terms of experience, but the fact that they have 2 levels over the jungler and he has a level over Nukeduck,
that's insane.
Perkz is going to be quite the scary carry this game, and I feel like it comes back to a point you made earlier, Endo, where because of how far ahead he was, he's been 1v2ing the mid lane and still gaining priority, and because he's on Xayah, he still plays relatively safe. So he's a big threat right now, and he has just completed his 3rd item. So now I wouldn't be surprised if we saw G2 look to try and start some fights. While we do talk a lot about their ability to 1-3-1, Swain, Rakan, Irelia, all still very potent team fighters. It's just about how you set up that team fight. You need to be the one finding the engagement, finding the flank. And ideally, you'd have a choke point so that it's easier for you to... Actually, do I want more of a choke point with an Irelia? I guess if you have more mobility dancing around the fight, especially against a Poppy, do you really want to be in that narrow corridor?
Yeah, I think it's hard with the Poppy, the Jarvan and Lissandra, and even the Varus ultimate create so many zones.
That's true.
Here that
Avoid
they can
choke
really
points.
use their voice. Yeah. So let's rethink that. Avoid the choke points.
If they win a choke point fight, though, we'll say you are prediction god.
But here's the thing. OG are starting up the Baron. G2, I think, would like to have a spread out fight. They might not get it if they have to force themselves into the pick.
9,000 HP left on the Baron. G2 trying to answer. Perkz on his way across.
Slow.
Very slow. Alphari will get the knock into the wall, pops down the steadfast presence. They get Mikyx, they get the pick. And now it's a 4v5 in favor of Origen. Nukeduck on the chase, onto Perkz. Flashes in with the Ring of Frost. Tahm Kench comes in from behind as well. Perkz will flash away. And Origen unable to find another pick, but do get the summoners out of the Xayah.
So now with the numbers advantage, Origen will try to use this to secure the mid tower, but fun fact, while the Baron was going off, G2 were gaining mid priority, and you can see that this wave wasn't here in time, which means that they weren't able to siege onto this tower.
Yeah, and OG would have to act fast if they wanted to start up the Baron, because Mikyx is going to be spawning in 5 seconds, and he has home guards. Now, look where Nukeduck is. He has no flash, but he's in the fog of war. He could look to start the fight inside of the corridor.
Kold on a ward, chased away by Jankos. Nukeduck now slipped behind G2. They're coming in from across towards the blue buff. Mikyx on his way to join the fight. 6,000 HP on the Baron. Jankos getting in. He's stolen the Elder Drake in the last game. Could make another steal here. Caps stepping forward, uses the never move, pulls back Mithy, knocked away with the Keeper's Verdict. Then Kold jumps in onto Jankos, but he goes golden, and the rest of G2 can react. Mikyx coming in as well. He jumps onto the backline. Nukeduck uses his stopwatch just in time. The Frozen Tomb actually used there. Mithy will split out Patrik. Perkz on a rampage. Wunder jumping onto the backline. That's 2 kills to him. Just needs the final swipe with the blade, and now Origen have to run for the hills. Alphari can knock back Wunder towards his minion wave, but the flawless duet will stun up Kold. He'll dodge away with the EQ combo. A steadfast presence will stop him for the moment. Jankos does not have the ultimate, so can't jump onto the backline. Alphari once again acting as the bouncer, pulled back with the never moving. Caps can tank this for days. Alphari goes golden for the moment as he stops time. Not knocked up, he's still alive. Somehow he'll get the shield from the buffer. The never move will pull him back, and eventually Caps says, screw this, I'm gonna use the ultimate, and shuts down Alphari.
Oh, Alphari doing everything he could to stay alive, but no. G2 kept OG around the Baron for long enough. The fight was turned by Origen. They're now trying to teleport in and stop it. They have the Tahm Kench too. Can they get a fight?
Baron goes down, the quickness used. Patrik caught out on the backline. Vision of Empire comes out as well. Perkz just trying to retreat. The feathers pulled back. Nukeduck chasing him out. Caps now joins the fight as the never move does not connect, but they force away Origen. That's all they wanted to do because they still have that Baron buff. The channel comes out. Mikyx caught up in the knockup from the EQ. The chase out. Mikyx unable to get there in time. Kold
TP
will
coming
stop
back in.
time. The teleport coming back in as G2 want more.
The other teleport.
Perkz has joined it in as well. Caps on a killing spree. He's 616. And Origen are now the team to turn and flee as G2 will chase them down. You have to think there's no hope left for Origen. Nukeduck getting in from the side. Patrik eaten up by Mithy, but the chase is still on. Mikyx will jump across the wall. Jankos now on the back of the fight. G2 still going. They're looking for it.
G2 just do not want to stop. They are unrelenting. Patrik has nowhere to go. Alphari gets caught out on the top side as well. This just will not end.
Alphari using the steadfast presence, but still will get knocked up. Jankos on the chase onto Nukeduck, who uses the proto belt. The keeper's verdict knocks back 3. And Alphari may have kept himself alive for the moment, but G2 got everything out of that fight.
Woo! That was a long team fight while Medic catches his breath. Let's try and recap this one, Ender, because it all starts off with Origen actually starting the Baron. Unfortunately, they put themselves in the choke point themselves, and that gives the freedom for Swain to walk up and start off this fight. Now, they think, okay, Origen, we can just turn and fight onto Wunder and Jankos, but unfortunately, they buy so much time that they actually hold out in a 1 versus 4. So the other 3 members of G2 are just surviving against the Lissandra, and they're like, well, we're happy. We can actually turn this one around. They've taken so much damage from the Baron, combined with really good Irelia play from Wunder, means that G2 end up coming off the initial fight very far ahead.
And when we saw Wunder put so far behind in the early game, we said he needs to be relevant in the mid game. Well, that is very relevant. 4-2-4 now has the Trinity Force already completed, has the Titanic Hydra as well. He's doing a huge amount of work. You just can't discount this man. He is such a strong top laner, and he proves it time after time. Now G2 pushing in for these towers. 6th tower of the game will go to them. They have a 7,000 gold lead after it was neck and neck just minutes ago, and they're looking to break open this inhibitor line. Already they have the inhib tower down. Mikyx coming to join his team, but they don't even need him. They'll get this inhibitor pretty much for free.
G2 can just brute force their way in, and unless Origen are willing to pull the trigger and fight, structure after structure will fall. The first bits of the base are broken open here on the side of G2, and the mid lane inhib tower is already at 50%. Seems like they're going to be able to get so much off just 1 more minute of Baron buff.
G2, I think a lot of this game has come off the fact that Perkz was just so strong early on into the game. No, again, he is the same level as Caps and Wunder. You know, like,
he's 2 levels over Nukeduck.
It's actually crazy how strong he is right now on this Xayah. And while he's not rolling in kills and like snowballing the gold, he's just been so relevant in keeping mid control and allowing G2 to control the top side of the map to help turn this Baron in their favor and ultimately break into the base of Origen.
Yeah, he also got the QSS, so it's so much harder to dive him. The turret goes down, and the Keeper's Verdict has already been used by Alphari. They're not going to pull the trigger. They're just going to lose another.
First super minion wave pushing in that bot lane as well. Wunder jumping forward onto Nukeduck. He does have the Frozen Tomb if he wants to keep himself alive, but with the minion waves pushing in, there's a super minion wave here. There's double cannon as well. That first Nexus tower hits the target. Nukeduck forced away, has to use the ultimate on himself, and now G2 take the first Nexus tower. Nukeduck gobbled up by Mithy, but they're just going to spit him out back onto the fountain, and G2 are chasing them all the way back into their base. G2 will look for the second Nexus tower. They'll take it pretty cleanly. Alphari trying to jump in, but the quickness is still there, and G2 have all the tools for the team fight. They take 2, they take 3, they take it, sodding all, and they'll get the triple kill for Irelia. G2 are 1 game away from finals in Rotterdam.
It was once again a very close early game. Both teams going back and forth. Origen investing all their resources in the top side of the map, G2 investing towards the bot side. Unfortunately, Origen could not convert the Alphari lead into a snowball, and it got into this mid-game point where they couldn't break that mid-tier 1, and because they couldn't get through that structure, they couldn't make any plays. They tried to force something around the Baron, and ultimately G2 came out ahead in that ensuing Baron fight.
And the hero wonder of this game, whether it was the brawl around the blue buff where he flashed over the wall, got the massive ult, the massive stun, or the team fights at the end around the Baron buff after being punished so much in lane with an early game tower dive, he was the hero for G2 in this second match.
And I mean, it's crazy to think, right, because Caps was 7-1 and 11, right? It was just like he was coming in, he was doing the damage, he was cleaning up fights, but it was the way in which they were turning those fights around off the back of Wunder. And props to Jankos as well. Yeah. His use of the ultimate, the amount of time that he was buying. Often when the fight started, he was always the guy that they were diving onto, but then he would just buy enough time for the rest of his team to reposition, and then they could turn the fight into their favor.
Yeah, but now think about the mental here of Origen. Game 1, fully in their control. They lose to a base race. Game 2, they get just blasted out of the water. They made a bad call around Baron and died for it. Now they're down 2 games against the best team in the league. How do you come back from that?
And that call felt desperate at times as well. TPing in when the Baron was already down. It felt a little bit like Origen were just grasping at straws, but only one win is standing between G2 and Esports in the final. We're stepping away, but fear not. We'll be back for match point in a few minutes. But Jankos is on the flank. Vision Vampire comes down. Alphari flashes across the wall. Jankos down to about half HP, but already Kold's done. Jankos underneath the tower. The hammer into the back of Jankos will secure it. Caps is on the other side of the wall. Can't join the fight, but maybe he's going in as the Vanguard's edge comes out. The keeper's verdict. A great stun. Nukeduck is down from Perkz. Mithy chased up towards the top side. Wunder gets another kill. Mithy coming in as well. He jumps onto the back line. Nukeduck uses his stopwatch just in time. The Frozen Tomb actually used there. Mithy will spin out Patrik. Perkz on a rampage. They take 2. They take 3. They take it. Sunning all, and they'll get the triple kill for Irelia. G2 are 1 game away from finals in Rotterdam.
What's for lunch?
Broccoli. Do you know who eats broccoli?
Children always do what their heroes do. Introducing Eat Like a Pro with Beko Home Appliances. Visit our website and discover our exclusive healthy FC Barcelona recipes to eat like a pro.